We are now moving on to the next portion of our presentation, which is Do the Right Thing, Understanding Employment Equity for Women with Disabilities and Deaf Women as a Multi-Sector Issue. And I'm asking now for Maggie Lions McFarland and Nelina Khan to come turn their cameras on. There they are. Wonderful. And we're going to let you introduce a little bit more about yourself if you want and get started on your presentation now. Over to you.
Hi, so my name is Nelina Khan. I'm a senior researcher at Dawn Canada, and I'm brunette with blonde highlights. I'm in between young and middle age, and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm coming from Jugjage. And I'm honored to be on a panel with so many amazing folks. And I'm going to let Maggie introduce themselves, but then also mention that our colleague Kathy Hawkins is also here, who is our president. So I'll invite that she also introduce herself, although she's not part of this video because she just had surgery. Maggie.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Maggie Lions McFarland. I am a late 30s-ish person with short dark hair. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm coming to you today from the Woolstock territory of the Mi'kmaq, Passamaquoddy, and Mi'kmaq individuals. And yeah, I will let's just take it forward here.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having myself and my colleague at Disability and Work in Canada 2024. Myself and my colleague are super excited to present a lightning talk today on Do the Right Thing. This is a curriculum that my colleague Maggie will expand on in a bit, and it's about understanding employment equity for women and gender diverse people with disabilities and deaf women and gender diverse people as a multi-sectoral issue. And so I'm Nelina Khan, and Dawn Canada was established in 1985 and is an intersectional feminist human rights organization that works to address systems of oppression. And our goal is to end the poverty, isolation, discrimination, and violence experienced by women and gender diverse people with disabilities, including those who are deaf in Canada. And this year we mark our 40th anniversary, and I'm sure I'll see a bunch of folks again and again at different events throughout this year. I'll let my colleague introduce themselves.
Thank you, Asha. Hi, folks. My name is Maggie Lions McFarland, and I'm a human rights officer here at Dawn Canada. Look forward to talking to you on Do the Right Thing today.
And we want people to walk away from this lightning talk, although very short, with things we should consider in every workspace, regardless of the kind of work environment we say we have, because systemic discrimination undergirds even the most feminist, most disability justice-based workspaces. And so as employers and fellow employees, how can employers have a positive impact on employment success for women and gender diverse people with disabilities? And this we propose is through disability-affirming policies and practices. And how can we support employees who are experiencing gender-based violence, which actually exasperates disability and other intersecting identities? And how can employers include educational materials to further educate themselves and other employees in the workspace? And I'm going to let my colleague Maggie speak a bit to what Do the Right Thing actually is.
Do the Right Thing is a curriculum, and here's a little bit about the business case for it. It's a curriculum that's centered in the lived experiences and the skills and the leadership of women with disabilities from the context of the workplace. It's grounded in intersectional and participatory values, and the overall aims are to promote proactive collaboration with employers, service providers, and the labor movement to dismantle systemic barriers. The actionable outcome is to equip participants with the knowledge and tools to drive internal change within their own organizations. And let's move on to the next slide. Now, real change must happen. Do the Right Thing can be a driving force to this real change. Now, why must this change happen? Because at this time in Canada, 30% of women live with a disability, with rates even higher among Black, Indigenous, and 2S LGBTQIA populations. Now, we also have to consider that 59% of all human rights complaints involve disability-related discrimination. 64% of those complaints are related to the workplace and associated discrimination. Disability intersects with sexism, with racism, and other forms of oppression, leaving women and gender diverse individuals disproportionately affected by poverty, housing insecurity, and violence.
And so Maggie, my colleague, has just provided us with so many reasons why it's so important to have an intersectional approach. So even all of us think about the people in our lives, a minimum of 3 out of 10 people we know lives with the disability of women and gender diverse people we know. And disability is very unique because it's protected grounds under human rights legislation because it often requires proactive measures, which many of us know, and that means accommodations and accessibility. So sometimes an employer will think, oh, I have a wheelchair ramp, I'm a accessible employer. Oh, the bathroom is built by accessibility standards, like it makes sense. But actually, that's not enough. And we fail to meet so many people's needs through thinking that way. And so we all come from different social locations, and work is not built around that, right? Like the 9 to 5 work day was built around colonial kind of nuclear family understandings of like women are at home and watching children, and children, men are at work. And then there's different iterations, and workspaces were built around a lot of white people actually only being able to have certain jobs and a lot of able-bodied people only being able to have certain jobs. So an intersectional approach to kind of reimagining what work looks like is necessary. And like I said earlier, it's less about kind of like ways and accommodations that happen after the fact. People try to be proactive, but you have to build workspaces around accessibility and considerations of where people who face different life circumstances might face gender-based violence, face racism, remnants of colonialism, immigration, and then the intersection of their disability, how that impacts them at work. So we must consider these factors when applying an intersectional approach to our programs, to our workspaces, and so on. And one of the biggest issues, and it's a challenge, is that systemic discrimination against women and gender diverse people with disabilities persists across sectors. And what needs to change to move beyond a reality riddled with systemic discrimination is not making people have the onus on them and rely on self-advocacy. So having frameworks that we consider lets us understand that people should not have to come to HR and say, hey, actually, this is my accommodation or access need and it's not being met. We need to build workspaces that actually consider all the ways that people exist in the world. So how do we move towards real and meaningful change grounded in practical methods and tools? Well, we have a lot of frameworks that already tell us accessibility, accommodations, and rights that people deserve and need in the world. And so they don't have to go to their management every week and say that something's not meeting their needs or that they need an e-reader because of an access need. Like these should not be conversations that the onus is on the oppressed person or the disabled person. And so Maggie will speak towards these frameworks.
Now, Do the Rights Thing is a course curriculum, and of course, course curriculums are grounded in frameworks. And for us, the frameworks are quite simple. We follow the conventions, taking proactive approaches to identifying, removing, and preventing barriers to accessibility, and using the structure, we created the curriculum to help guide the process in just that way. Between the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, CRPD for short, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW for short, and the Canada Human Rights Act and the Accessible Canada Act. Very happy that everyone could join us, and we'll be going to the Q&A portion very shortly.